بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I am Dr. Maha Muhammad Goma, lecturer at Medical Parasitology Department. Today, inshallah, we will cover an important lecture in the module of Infectious Diseases 1. It is about Introduction to Protozoa. It is the fifth lecture in this module. What is the definition of protozoa? Members of protozoa are unicellular microorganisms of different sizes and forms. They are either free-living or parasitic. They are capable of performance of all the functions of the life. What about the general features of protozoa? We will cover some important points regarding the general features of protozoa members. We will discuss some points regarding the ectoplasm, endoplasm, nucleus, food ingestion, excretion of metabolic waste products, the movement of the parasites, the secreted substances, and the methods of reproduction. Regarding the ectoplasm, what is the ectoplasm? It is the outer part of the cytoplasm of the parasite. Okay? It is responsible for the movement of the parasites, protection of the parasite, respiration, secretion, excretion, and finally it is important for food ingestion. What about the endoplasm of the parasite of protozoa? The endoplasm is the inner part of the cytoplasm of the protozoa. It is responsible for food digestion, reproduction. It contains the nucleus of the protozoan, and it contains food vacuoles and contractile vacuoles, which are responsible for the regulation of the osmotic pressure of the protozoan. What about the nucleus? Nuclei of protozoa are either vesicular nuclei or compact nuclei. Regarding the vesicular nuclei, the chromatin granules are concentrated in the karyosome or the nucleolus and or dispersed on the inner aspect of the nuclear membrane. However, in the compact nucleus, chromatin granules are nearly filling the nucleus with very minimal nucleoplasm. What about food ingestion in protozoa? It is either by pseudopodia, which are finger-like projections of the ectoplasm and endoplasm. It's help in food ingestion and also help in movement of the protozoan parasite belonging to amoebae. Food ingestion can occur by slit-like mouth opening like this. It occurs in ciliates, or by diffusion through the cell membrane. Very small molecules will diffuse from the extracellular fluid to the intracellular compartment or into the cytoplasm through the lipid bilayer of the cell membrane. Regarding the excretion of metabolic products of the protozoa, it is either by diffusion through this ectoplasm, then outside the parasite, or by the aid of contractile vacuoles as in ciliates, or they may be deposited as pigments, granules in the endoplasm of the protozoa. Regarding the secreted substances, protozoa can produce or secrete enzymes and the many parasitic molecules that help the parasite to get its way in between the host cells or even inside the host cell. Also, some parasites belonging to protozoa are able of secretion of cyst wall for protection of the protozoan. What about methods or ways of reproduction in protozoa? They may be asexual reproduction called fission. We have parent cell with a nucleus here. The nucleus will divide into two nuclei. Then the cytoplasm will divide, giving two daughter cells. If we have two daughter cells, so it is called binary fission. If we have more than two daughter cells, so it is called multiple fission. So some protozoa are capable of reproduction asexually, either by binary fission or multiple fission. Another method of reproduction is the sexual reproduction. It occurs in some protozoa. Here we have the fusion of male and female gametes to form the zygote. So it is called sexual reproduction. Now we will take some points regarding the organ of locomotion in protozoa, either by pseudopodia or flagella or cilia. What about pseudopodia? They are blunt finger-like projections of ectoplasm and endoplasm of the protozoan. They are responsible for sliding and the crawling of the protozoan. What about flagella? They are long thread-like filamentous structures. They may be singular or multiple. They are responsible for the swimming of the protozoan. However, cilia are short hair-like structures. They are numerous and they are responsible for swimming of the protozoan. According to the organ of locomotion, here we will have the classification of protozoa. Protozoa are classified into three main phyla: Sarcomastigophora, Celiophora, and Apicomplexa. Regarding the phylum Sarcomastigophora, it will be subdivided into Sarcodyna and Mastigophora. Sarcodyna are capable of movement with the aid of pseudopodia. In Mastigophora, they can move with the aid of flagella. In the phylum Celiophora, they move with the aid of cilia. Regarding Apicomplexa phylum, we have no definite organ of locomotion. Instead, we will have an apical complex in this protozoan. What about Sarcodyna or amoebae? Some general features regarding Sarcodyna: they have two morphological stages, trophozoites and cysts. Trophozoites are the mobile form of the parasite. They move with the aid of pseudopodia. An important example for this phylum is Entamoeba histolytica. It is responsible for a very important relevant disease in our country, which is called amoebiasis. It will be discussed, inshallah, in the next module. Here we have simple points for the life cycle of Sarcodyna. Three main important points should be fulfilled in any life cycle of the parasite. The first point is the infective parasitic stage. Here in Sarcodyna, the infective parasitic stage is the mature cyst. And man can get infection through the ingestion of these mature cysts in contaminated food or water. So the route of infection is ingestion, okay? Oral route. And the parasite will induce the pathological changes in the gut. Then it will be excreted in the stool of the patient in the form of trophozoites or cysts. So the diagnostic parasitic stage will be cyst or trophozoite in the stool of the patient. Regarding masticophora or flagellates, they move with the aid of flagella. These flagella may be single or multiple, okay? Single flagellum or multiple flagella. They are either intestinal flagellates, as Giardia lamblia, responsible for a disease called giardiasis, or they may be blood and tissue flagellates, for example, leishmania, which is responsible for a very important disease called leishmaniasis, either cutaneous leishmaniasis or visceral leishmaniasis. Regarding the life cycle of intestinal flagellates, as an example, as we have said, is the Giardia lamblia. It is a direct life cycle. You know the meaning of direct life cycle of the protozoan parasite? Yeah, we will get it. Direct life cycle means that there is no need for an arthropod vector to complete the transmission or to complete the life cycle of the parasite. Okay? So the parasite is transmitted to the man directly with no need to an arthropod vector. Here we will have the three main important points. The first one is the infective parasitic stage. Again, it is mature cysts. These mature cysts will be ingested in contaminated food or water. It will induce pathological changes in the gut, and it will be excreted in the stool of the patient in the form of cystic stage or trophic stage. Here, this life cycle is very, very similar to the life cycle of Sarcodina or amoebae. It is very simple. Okay, it is direct life cycle. However, in blood and tissue flagellates, as an example, leishmania is leishmania parasite, it is an indirect life cycle. You know the meaning of indirect life cycle? Indirect life cycle, it means that there is a need for an arthropod vector to transmit the disease, to complete the life cycle of the disease, okay, or to complete the life cycle of the parasite. So it is indirect life cycle. As an example here, leishmania parasite, the infective parasitic stage is promastigote. This promastigote will be introduced or injected in the mammalian host by the aid of arthropod vector, by the bite of a vector, okay? Then pathological changes will occur, and we will find the diagnostic parasitic stage in the tissues of the mammalian host in the form of a mastigote, okay? This is an indirect life cycle. There is a need for arthropod vector to complete the cycle of the parasite. Regarding phylum Celiophora or ciliates, they have general characteristic features. They have two morphological stages, and the trophozoites move with the aid of cilia. Also, they have important organelles, which are contractile vacuoles. They are important for the excretion of metabolic waste products, and also they are important in regulation of osmotic pressure of the parasite. Many ciliates are free-living, and only few are parasitic. Regarding Apicomplexa phylum or Coccidia, they have no definite organ of locomotion. No definite organ of locomotion. Instead, they will have an apical complex. It is an ultrastructure containing organelles. These organelles will facilitate the invasion of the host cell. Okay. They have complicated life cycle involving both sexual and asexual reproduction. We have very important examples for the members of Apicomplexa. Toxoplasma gondii. It is a parasite responsible for a disease called toxoplasmosis. And Plasmodium species, they are responsible for the disease called malaria. Both diseases will be discussed in details, inshallah, in the next module. Regarding the complicated life cycle of Apicomplexa, which is complex life cycle, complicated life cycle involving both sexual and asexual reproduction and involving more than one host, 2 hosts. The asexual cycle involves the formation of a parasitic stage called schizont. So it is called schizogony. Okay? So the asexual cycle is called schizogony. It occurs in the vertebrate host. Regarding the sexual cycle that involves the fusion of male and female gametes, as we have said in the beginning of the lecture, it occurs in the vertebrate host or in the invertebrate host. Okay? It occurs either in vertebrate host or in the invertebrate host. In toxoplasmosis, for example, the asexual cycle occurs in a vertebrate host like man. Okay? However, the sexual reproduction occurs in another vertebrate host like cats. Regarding malaria disease, it is another example of Apicomplexa. We have also 2 hosts, but it is different from the life cycle of toxoplasmosis. The asexual cycle occurs in a vertebrate host like man. However, the sexual cycle will occur in an arthropod vector. It will occur in an invertebrate host, which is an arthropod vector like mosquito. You get the difference? To summarize the life cycle of Apicomplexa, the asexual life cycle occurs in vertebrate hosts like man. In case of toxoplasmosis, the sexual cycle will occur in another vertebrate host like cats. However, in malaria, the sexual cycle will occur in an invertebrate host like arthropods, for example, mosquito. Okay? Here, this is a diagram for the life cycle of Plasmodium species. We'll focus only on some little points here. We have an arthropod vector. In this vector, we will have this sexual life cycle that involves the fusion of male and the female gametes to form the zygote, then ookinete and zoocytes and so on. Okay? You should get that here we have sexual cycle that occurs in an arthropod vector. And this arthropod vector will transmit the parasitic and inject the parasitic stage of the Plasmodium species into the host, into a mammalian host like man. And the parasite will undergo asexual multiplication, asexual reproduction, forming schizonts. So it is called schizogony. This occurs in the mammalian host or in the vertebrate host like man. Finally, we have finished our lecture. Thanks, my dear students.